probably sound like I'm talking in a barrel right now, and that's because I have to use the regular computer microphone. I'm trying to locate my headphones, but I think they're in the car that my wife took to work, so sorry about that. Hey, guess what? We're in the final stretch of the course. It's awesome. What we're going to learn about today is something really amazing called object-oriented programming. So I would say that right now we're at the point where if we stop the course, you know a lot about the basics of programming, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do and write. So whether you're continuing on with computer science or this is the end of your journey, I'm hoping that you've been learning some really useful problem-solving skills, and I'm hoping that if you end up in an environment where you might be able to write some small programs to help with your job wherever you end up after Stonehill, that you'll be able to do that, or at least this will give you a leg up on learning how to do it. So if we stopped right now, you'd be fine. But now what we're going to do is add the icing on the cake. It would be really nice to be able to take advantage of work that other people have done rather than reinventing the wheel. And so object-oriented programming, part of that is leveraging the work that other people have done, being able to bring that work into your program and do amazing things. Now, I'll say that what we have to do now is do a little bit of a mind shift in order to appreciate and use objects and object-oriented programming. The thing about objects and object-oriented programming is it's kind of like working with methods, except that in addition to the methods that you can use that other folks have written, there's some data you can access. So these things that we're working with, these things called objects, both have methods and data. And we'll go over this over and over again, but I thought it might be useful to actually grab an object and use it in a program. And so to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and we'll call this object-oriented programming. And we'll create that, and then we're going to go into this folder, and we'll create a new file, and we're going to call this, working with dogs. All right, so that's our program, working with dogs.java. All right, and I just want to grab a little helpful program here that just has a little main. So I'm just going to grab it from here, and I'm going to put that in my working with dogs. I'll get rid of the add 5 stuff. I just want to start out with a blank main. Okay, so far so good. Now, I happen to know that on the course website, there is some code that someone else has written that we could take advantage of that models dogs. So I'm going to grab that code and use it, and then we'll come back and talk about the big ideas behind object-oriented programming. But the biggest idea is that there's code that other people have written. You can grab that code and use it to do all kinds of amazing things. And the amazing things are, of course, things that the original writers of the code could never have imagined, because you're going to take their code, appropriate it, and use it for your own programming work. All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, first, we're going to go to the course website. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to also put this in eLearn, so it'll be fairly easy for you to find. But there's a section here on the course website that's called Using Classes, right here. And you can see that this first class here, there's a class called the dog class. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the code for the dog class, and I'm going to put it into my Codio program. All right, and so I'll show you how to do that. So you basically right-click on the class and then do Save Link As. And when you do that, it'll save it to your Downloads folder. So you just save it. So now I've saved that to my. What I can do in Codio is I can do a file upload, and I'm going to do a browse from files, and I'll go to downloads, and I'll click on my dog.java file. That's the thing I just downloaded from the course website, and I'll upload it. Okay, and now we have dog.java, and hopefully it'll be uploaded. Let's see. Go to object-oriented programming, and you see in object-oriented programming there's a file called dog.java. So it's really important that you pull in the class that you're going to work with. This class contains the blueprint for the objects that we're going to be working with. And in this program, we're going to work with the dog class, and we're going to create dog objects. So this terminology will make sense in a little while, but I just wanted to demonstrate actually using it. Okay, so how do we get started with this? Well, why don't we see if we can create a dog, all right? Okay, we'll just tab in here, and I'm going to say dog. Isn't that awesome? So you have types that you've worked with so far. Primarily we work with integers and doubles, but we've also worked with booleans and characters, and lately we've been sort of playing around with the idea of this type called a string. But now I'm telling you, here's a brand new type called a dog. Why can I say this? Well, I downloaded this code called dog.java that's going to let me create this new type called dog. All right? So I'm going to call this dog Bell, and I'm going to create a dog object for Bell, and that dog object is going to represent my dog Bell. All right? So I'm going to say new dog, and in parentheses I'm going to pass in a couple of arguments here. So this should look somewhat similar to code that we've written before with the scanner, but anyway, it is still sort of new. So there's two things that you pass in when you create a dog. So the first thing you're going to pass in is the barking noise that the dog makes. So Bell makes kind of a roo sort of noise. It's sort of like what a hound dog kind of noise that a hound dog might, or a beagle might make. We'll say roof, roof, like that. And the dog also has a weight. I happen to know that Belle's weight is 49 pounds. We've been hiking her a lot, so she's lost a little bit of weight. Okay. So what I just did is pretty mind-blowing, right? Because up until now, we've had a very limited set of types that we can work with. And I just told you that now with object-oriented programming, you basically have an infinite amount of types. They're types that other people have created that you can then use to do stuff. So this type happens to be a dog. All right. Now, what do I do with this? Well, I can say this, system.out.println, hello, my name is Bell, and I weigh and I can say bell.getWeight pounds. Okay, so this is also kind of interesting, right? What I'm saying is I have this dog, my dog's named Bell, and it looks like I can kind of call a method or invoke a method on Bell to get Bell's weight. So Bell, in addition to Bell being a type, a new type called dog, there are methods that I can invoke on Bell to have things happen, like get weight. So I'm carrying around with this thing, this object, Bell, things that Bell can do. So one thing Bell can do is get weight. The other thing that Bell can do is bark. So if I say bell.bark, Bell will make her barking noise. All right? So there's my program. So let's try compiling and running it and see what happens. Whoops, I've got a CD to object-oriented programming, and now let's try compiling and running. Oop, I have an extra paren there. Too many get waits parens there. Let's try that. Oh, I have things in the wrong order. I think you do the wait first, then you do the barking noise. Okay. There we go. So I just ran the program, and you can see it down there. It says, hello, my name is Belle. Ooh, and. How about and? Let's try running that again. Hello, my name is Belle, and I weigh 49 pounds. So remember, when we created Belle up here in the beginning, the process of creating the dog that is Belle allowed us to pass a few arguments in as we created Belle, sort of like a method, basically. And so it's like a creation method. We're saying when we create this dog, we want to pass in a weight of 49 and a string in quotes, which is the barking sound that Belle makes. All right. So when it runs, it says, hello, my name is Belle, and I weigh 49 pounds. And then Belle makes this sound, woof, woof. Pretty cool. Now, also sort of mind-blowing because there's a lot of funky stuff going on here that we need to kind of unwrap and unravel. But this is a small program that demonstrates the basics of object-oriented programming. So these new types, which you can pull in from anywhere, there's literally hundreds of thousands of these types. And if you pull the code for one of these types into your program, and you know what these types are capable of doing, you can then use these types to do all sorts of amazing things. Now, how did I know that when I created Belle by saying new dog, that I could pass these arguments in to this creation method? How did I know that? And then how did I know that there was a special method that you could invoke on Belle called getWait? How did I know that? And also a special method called bark. Well, I'll tell you how I knew. Every one of these special types, like dog.java, we don't have to look at that code right now, but the code associated with it has documentation. And the documentation is paired along with the class. So I have a lot of sample new types that you can use to do all kinds of cool things here. We've got a dog type and a circle type and a soda machine and a dice type and a cards type and a render type and a player type and even a Twitter type. So these are all things that you can grab, pull into a program that you're writing and use to do all kinds of cool stuff. So if you want to understand how to use one of these new types, what you're going to do is go to documentation for the type, and then you'll see a description of things that you can do with the type. Let me just turn my notifications off so you don't have to watch my messages from my nerdy friends. Okay, so we've got this documentation, so we can use this to use this new type to do all kinds of cool stuff. So let me just go through the documentation here. So the documentation lists something called members. These members are pieces of data that are carried around with the type. So the dog has a member, which is a sound that it can make, like the barking sound, and its weight. We also have the creation methods or initialization methods. So these show you what you can pass in when you're creating a dog. So the description here says if you create a dog called X, you pass in two values, the weight and the bark. The weight is an integer, the bark is a string. Okay? And here's an example. Dog Fido equals new dog 35 woof woof. All right, that dog weighs less than Belle. Dog Rex equals new dog 70 bow wow. So this is a dog that weighs 70 pounds and makes a bow wow sound. And there's extra methods other than the initialization or creation methods that are available that you can invoke on this dog. So one is called wait, get weight, which returns the weight. One is called bark, which prints a barking sound out of the screen. And then a really cool one called set weight. So for example, my dog Belle was gaining some pounds and we started hiking her a little bit more and she lost weight. So we could call the set weight method to change Belle's weight as the program runs. And then also there's often a sample program to just show you how to use the new type, this new dog type, for example. So here we've got the creation of Fido, and then a system out print line, and finally the barking line. So very similar actually to what I just wrote. Okay, so that's a first and very brief introduction to object-oriented programming. Now we're going to step back and think about object-oriented programming more formally.